cardiac force. So we've talked about how to adjust the rate, and now we're going to look at how we adjust the force of the heartbeat. So the force of the heartbeat is set by two basic things. The first is what we call an intrinsic mechanism, meaning it's internal to the heart. It's based on the stretch of the heart sarcomeres. So remember this graph, we had it from skeletal muscle, where skeletal would have been up here. The thing is, the heart works more in this range, more in the linear range, because down here, we already have some overlap. We're not going to get a lot of force. The heart isn't very full. But as we fill the heart, we're going to stretch the heart towards that better overlap, right? We don't want it to get so full that it goes over and is overstretched, which can happen. If you remember from your anatomy class, seeing the enlarged human heart, that was a case where he went too far. But most of us are going to work in this physiological range where putting more blood into the heart causes the internal stretch of these sarcomeres, which causes them to have a better overlap and beat with more force. So I said we have to have more blood. Well, how can we do that? Well, we have to increase venous return. We have to get more blood coming in. And the question about is, how do you do that? And that's about muscle movement, not muscles of the heart, but your skeletal muscles. If you move your limbs, if you move your deep breathing, anything that puts pressure on the veins to cause more blood to flow to the heart will fill the heart with more blood, and it will beat with more force. The other thing is slowing it down. If you slow down the heart so that there's more time between each beat, then you have more time to refill the heart, and therefore more blood will flow in. Because remember, the heart will passively stretch. That stretch is what determines this. And this is called the Frank-Starling law of the heart. Now, I have a big disagreement with your textbook at this point. They leave off Frank. However, every other physiological book or physiology book I've ever read calls it the Frank-Starling law. So we're going to go with that. And if you want full credit, you'll give me both names. Just saying. What the Frank-Starling law of the heart is as the end diastolic volume increases, that's the amount of blood in the heart at the end of diastole, increases. As that volume increases, the force increases. Now let's go back to the thing I showed you a moment ago. It's saying as the length of the sarcomere increases, which we can say equate to volume, as the length increases or the volume increases, the force increases. So that graph and this statement match. And basically, they came out with the force of the heartbeat is proportional to the amount of blood in the heart at the end of diastole. So if you don't have enough, you'll get a lesser amount. This will affect things like cardiac output, which is the amount of blood every minute, and something we call the ejection fraction, which we'll get to in a moment. So this graph is from your book. It's a little curvier than my straight up and down and over graph, but we're still trying to see about this piece of the graph I think they're trying to show. But they're saying an increase in EDV. EDV stands for end diastolic volume, causes an increase in stroke volume, or because we're increasing stroke volume, an increase in force of the beat. To get more volume out, you have to push harder. So that means you have to have an increase in force to get an increase in stroke volume. The other way we can change the amount of blood is sympathetic stimulation, which will increase the rate and the force. And the way it does that is through the cyclic AMP second messenger. It will cause an increase in the amount of calcium. The more calcium is available, the more it will beat. But this is a neural versus, well, neural and hormonal versus intrinsic.